on a cold morning in the winter of 1941, inside a vast naval supply warehouse near San Francisco Bay, a young storekeeper named William Harding unlocked the heavy metal door to begin another silent day of sorting mailbags. The building was still dark. The concrete floor held the night air. The rows of canvas bags seemed to stretch into the shadows like quiet sentries. Harding had walked this same path many times. He was only 24, a junior storekeeper with little authority. But on that morning he carried a weight that no one around him suspected. At the far end of the room sat a sealed, wooden crate that had arrived the night before. It was marked for routine transfer. Nothing unusual. Nothing demanding attention. But Harding knew that the crate did not carry spare parts or tools. Inside lay a packet of enemy code sheets taken from a captured radio operator in the Pacific. The sheets were thin, fragile, and covered with the numbers and letter groups that Japanese naval units used to communicate across thousands of miles. They were priceless. They were dangerous. And they were hidden inside the crate only because Harding had made a private decision that he had never shared with another soul. The war was expanding. Tension filled every corridor of the naval base. Rumors moved faster than official reports. Harding heard officers whisper about destroyed ships and dead crew members. He saw the exhausted faces of messengers carrying sealed envelopes through the night. He knew that enemy codes could shape the fate of entire fleets. He also knew that the packet inside the crate was not supposed to be anywhere near a supply warehouse. It should have been taken directly to trained cryptographers. Yet it sat in front of him because he had moved it himself. 2 days earlier, Harding had convinced himself that he was protecting the packet. He believed that if he kept the code sheets hidden among ordinary mail bags, no enemy agent would ever find them. No one would think to look for something that valuable in the quiet world of a storekeeper. But he did not consider something else. A supply warehouse is full of hands. Clerks, drivers, inspectors, and supervisors move through it every hour. All it takes is one misplaced bag. All it takes is one wrong label. All it takes is one letter landing on the wrong desk. Harding set the crate on a steel table. He hesitated. His pulse rose. He wondered if he had already made a mistake that could not be undone. Harding opened the crate with slow and careful movements. The thin packet of code sheets lay beneath a layer of folded paper. Even without touching them, he felt a strange fear, as if the fragile pages carried the sound of distant engines and distant guns. He lifted the packet and wrapped it in plain cloth. Then he placed it inside a mail bag that had been marked for internal sorting. This was the same hiding method he had used before, and he believed it was safe. A simple mailbag disappeared into the endless flow of daily movement. It was the one place where secrecy felt invisible. But that morning the warehouse was not quiet for long. A supervisor named Carl Madden arrived early. Madden was in his late 30s, a strict and orderly man who believed every corner of the warehouse reflected on his reputation. He walked with a brisk step, and he expected others to match his pace. Harding heard his footsteps and tried to look calm. But Madden noticed the open crate and moved toward him. Madden asked why a sealed crate was open before inspection. Harding answered that he was preparing the morning sort. His voice shook slightly. Madden studied the mailbag beside him, the one that now held the hidden code sheets. It was not unusual for Madden to question anything he thought looked out of place. Harding knew this and felt a tightness climb through his chest. Before Madden could say more, a driver entered the warehouse pushing a cart loaded with outgoing mail. He called out that a transfer truck was leaving in a few minutes and needed additional bags. The driver grabbed the nearest bag without checking its tag. Harding froze. It was the same bag that contained the code sheets. The driver tossed it onto the cart with the rest of the routine mail and pushed it toward the loading area. Harding stepped forward as if to stop him. His hand lifted but then dropped. Madden watched him out of the corner of his eye. Harding whispered to himself that the bag would remain within base grounds, that he could retrieve it before it went far. He tried to calm the rising panic that told him something was already going wrong. The cart rolled out of the room. Harding waited a moment, then excused himself and hurried after it. In his mind he repeated the same thought again and again. The bag must not leave the building. The code sheets must stay hidden. He believed he still had time, but he had not seen the new clerk sorting mail in the next room. She was young and diligent, eager to follow every rule that had been drilled into her. She was already checking tags and preparing to redirect anything that seemed to be misplaced. One wrong desk, one wrong pair of hands, one moment where a routine habit becomes the beginning of a chain reaction. The young clerk was named Ellen Porter. She was 21, recently transferred from the East Coast, and she carried a quiet determination to prove herself. Her hair was tied neatly behind her head, and she approached every mailbag as if it were a personal test of precision. She believed that careful work saved lives, even if she never saw the ships or the sailors her efforts supported. When the driver pushed the cart into the sorting area, she nodded politely and began lifting the bags one by one. Harding entered the room, just as she placed her hands on the bag that held the enemy code sheets. His heart struck his ribs with sharp pulses. He forced a smile and said that he needed to check that particular bag before she processed it. Ellen paused, confused. She asked why, since it was marked for normal routing. Harding tried to form a simple explanation, but his words stumbled. His throat tightened. Ellen waited for an answer, and in that moment the driver called out that he needed the outgoing bags immediately. Ellen hesitated. She looked at the tag again. It listed a destination that did not match the cart she was preparing. According to protocol, anything mislabeled had to go through administrative review. She knew this rule well. Without another word, she lifted the bag off the cart and placed it on a separate desk reserved for unusual items. Harding felt a cold wave rise through his body. He stepped closer and told her he would handle it. She said she could not break procedure. It was not personal. It was simply the rule. The bag would be inspected by Lieutenant Harold Pierce, the officer who managed communications routine. Harding knew Pierce by reputation. Pierce was strict, intelligent, and suspicious by nature. He read every irregular tag as a potential security issue. Ellen carried the bag toward Pierce's office. Each step seemed to echo through the warehouse like slow beats of a drum. Harding followed her at a distance, trapped between two impossible choices. If he demanded the bag back, Ellen would question him. If he tried to take it, Pierce would learn about it. If Pierce opened the bag, he would find something that should never have been near supply duty. Harding knew exactly what that meant. Unauthorized possession of enemy code sheets was a severe offense, especially in wartime. It could destroy a career. It could lead to charges far more serious than misconduct. Ellen reached the door and placed the bag on Pierce's desk. She wrote a short note explaining that the tag seemed incorrect and that the bag required review. Then she returned to her station. The door remained open, and through it Harding saw Lieutenant Pierce sitting behind his desk, preparing to begin his morning work. The moment the lieutenant noticed the bag, he reached for it. Lieutenant Harold Pierce was 43, a man shaped by 2 decades of naval service and an instinctive distrust of anything that looked out of place. His posture was straight even when he was seated. His uniform always looked freshly pressed. He believed that mistakes were dangerous and that a single oversight could cost sailors their lives. When he saw the mailbag on his desk with a note referring to an incorrect tag, he adjusted his glasses and pulled it closer without hesitation. Harding stood just outside the doorway, partly hidden by the frame. He watched Pierce untie the string and open the top of the bag. The air felt heavier with each passing second. Harding tried to think of a reason to interrupt him, but every excuse sounded weak even in his own mind. His pulse throbbed against his temples. His hands felt cold. He knew that once Pierce looked inside, there would be no explanation that could protect him. Pierce reached into the bag and pulled out the cloth bundle. He unfolded it slowly. At first he saw only thin sheets of paper. Then he noticed the printed groups of letters and numbers arranged in a structured pattern. His expression shifted from routine focus to sudden alertness. He lifted the top sheet and examined it carefully. He tapped the edge of the paper on the desk. He understood immediately what he was holding. These were enemy code sheets. They were supposed to be delivered directly to intelligence personnel, not stored in a warehouse among routine supplies. Pierce placed the sheets down and looked toward the open doorway. Harding stepped back instinctively, but Pierce had already seen him. The lieutenant called his name, not loudly, but firmly. Harding entered the office with slow steps. He felt exposed, as if the entire warehouse could see through him. Pierce asked how the code sheets had ended up inside a mail bag marked for ordinary routing. Harding said that he had been trying to secure them until the proper office opened. Pierce asked why he had not logged them, reported them, or followed standard procedure. Harding had no answer. Pierce did not raise his voice. He simply stared at Harding with a steady expression that mixed disbelief and disappointment. He told Harding that the matter was not only irregular, but dangerous. If these sheets had been lost, stolen, or delayed, it could have affected operations across the Pacific. Harding knew this already. Hearing it from Pierce made it more real. It felt like a verdict. Pierce gathered the code sheets, placed them inside a secure envelope, sealed it, and wrote a clear label in neat handwriting. Then he informed Harding that he would need to file a report with the security office. Harding's stomach tightened. He knew that a report meant questions. Questions meant discovery, and discovery meant consequences that could follow him for years. Pierce stood. He picked up the envelope. He did not ask Harding to follow him, yet Harding felt that he should. Every step out of the office felt like walking deeper into a future he could not escape. Pierce walked with measured steps toward the security office, the sealed envelope held firmly in his hand. Harding followed a short distance behind him. The corridor felt colder than before. Harding noticed small details he had never paid attention to, such as the faint echo of boots on the concrete floor and the hum of overhead lights. Every sound seemed sharper, as if the building itself understood what was happening. He felt as if he were walking inside a narrow tunnel that offered no space to turn back. When they reached the security office, a petty officer named Samuel Riker sat at a desk sorting identification cards. Riker was calm and polite, a man who rarely showed emotion. He greeted Pierce with a respectful nod. Pierce placed the envelope on the desk and explained that an irregular routing had brought sensitive material into the warehouse. He said that the matter required review an immediate delivery to intelligence. Riker opened a logbook and recorded the date and time. He asked how the material had been found. Pierce paused before speaking. He looked at Harding. He did not accuse him directly. Instead, he stated that a tag discrepancy had led to the discovery. Riker wrote this down. He then asked Harding whether he had handled the bag. Harding said yes. Riker asked why. Harding hesitated. He tried to form a careful sentence, one that would not reveal everything, yet did not sound defensive. He explained that he had been attempting to keep the packet safe until it could be passed to the correct office. He said he had acted out of caution. He said he believed there was no risk because the bag was inside the warehouse. Riker kept writing as Harding spoke. He did not look up. His steady hand and quiet posture made Harding feel even more exposed. Riker then asked a simple question. Had Harding logged the material? Harding said no. Riker asked if the material had been in Harding's possession for more than a day. Harding said yes. Riker finally looked up. His expression did not show anger. It showed concern. He said that this created a serious problem. Sensitive material must be logged immediately. It must never be mixed with routine mail. The moment a code sheet leaves the proper chain of custody, it becomes a security risk. Riker told Pierce he would deliver the envelope to intelligence within the hour. He then informed Harding that he might be called for an interview. Harding felt a heaviness settle inside him, as if a door behind him had closed. He could sense that the next steps would not be simple. He feared that his attempt to protect the code sheets might now be seen as something entirely different. In his effort to hide them from danger, he had placed them in greater danger than he ever intended. Harding walked out of the security office with slow and uncertain steps. The corridor seemed longer than before, as if the building had stretched into an unfamiliar shape. He felt a pressure behind his eyes, the kind that comes from fear mixed with regret. The warehouse, which had always been a place of routine and quiet repetition, now felt like a field marked by invisible dangers. Every corner held a question he could not yet answer. When he returned to his station, Ellen Porter glanced at him. Her expression carried a flicker of concern. She had not meant to cause trouble. She had only followed the rules she had been taught. She approached Harding and asked if everything was all right. Harding forced a small smile and said that the matter would be reviewed. He thanked her for being careful with the tags. She nodded, unaware of the weight in his voice. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Harding tried to focus on ordinary tasks, but he moved through them without real attention. His mind replayed the same moments again and again. He saw the driver lifting the bag. He saw Ellen redirecting it. He saw Pierce unfolding the cloth. Each detail felt sharper in memory than it had in the moment. He wondered how a choice that had once felt protective had turned into a chain of events he could not control. By early afternoon, a messenger arrived with instructions for Harding to report to an interview room near the administration wing. The message was brief and polite, but Harding felt as if he had been summoned to face a verdict. He walked across the base, passing sailors carrying tools, officers reviewing documents, and clerks sorting letters. Everyone around him moved with purpose. Their lives seemed certain. His path felt uncertain with every step. The interview room was small and plain. A single lamp lit the table. A chair waited on each side. A lieutenant from the intelligence division entered and introduced himself as Martin Lowell. Lowell was calm and measured. He explained that the purpose of the meeting was to understand how the code sheets had been misplaced. Lowell asked Harding to describe everything from the beginning. Harding spoke slowly. He explained how the packet had arrived, how he had taken it to keep it safe, how he had hidden it in a mailbag, and how he had planned to deliver it properly. Lowell listened without interruption. He took notes with steady motions of his pen. When Harding finished, Lowell asked a question that felt heavier than the rest. He asked whether Harding had handled the code sheets because he did not trust the normal chain of custody. Harding said that was not his intention. Lowell asked if anyone had instructed him to take the packet. Harding said no. Lowell asked if he had spoken to anyone about it. Harding said no again. Lowell closed his notebook. His expression remained calm, but his eyes showed the weight of what he had heard. He said that sometimes mistakes come from fear and sometimes from judgment. That seems wise in the moment, but dangerous in hindsight. He said the investigation would continue. Harding left the room feeling both relieved and unsettled. The truth was now on record, but the consequences had not yet arrived. Harding stepped outside as the sun lowered over the base. The day felt longer than any he had lived through. He walked toward the warehouse, passing the quiet lines of supply trucks and the distant sound of waves against the pier. Nothing around him had changed, yet everything inside him had shifted. He knew the investigation would decide his future. He also knew that he had acted alone, guided by fear and a desire to protect something he barely understood. He had not betrayed his country, but he had broken the chain of trust that held the base together. Later that evening, Lieutenant Lowell sent a message stating that the code sheets were delivered safely to the intelligence office. The report would remain on file, but no charges would be brought. Lowell wrote that Harding's mistake had been serious, but it had come from caution, not disloyalty. Harding read the message twice. The weight on his chest eased, though it did not disappear. He understood now that secrecy without structure is dangerous. Even good intentions can move a nation closer to risk. The warehouse was quiet when he returned. Rows of mailbags waited for the next day. Harding placed his hand on one of them and drew a slow breath. He had learned a lesson he would never forget. If you want more stories like this, subscribe so you never miss the next one.